Welcome to the World Awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
Welcome back to the World Awaits. How are you all? How's your week been, Belle? I've seen all your gorgeous little photos of snowflakes.
Oh, I've had the most magnificent weekend in Tasmania, frolicking in the snow with wombats. What could be better? I mean, look, I love Tassie. I'm not there often enough. Technically, I am half Tasmanian, as my dad is from New Norfolk before it was cool. So I was there reviewing 2 new retreats, very beautiful, very luxurious additions to Pump House Point on Lake St. Clair, which is set literally on a pier in the middle of the lake in the Central Highlands. If you're a hiker, and I know you are, Kirstie, you will know this is the end of the Tasmania's Overland Track, which is a 5 or 6 day hike, which I did many years ago and I still rate as one of Australia's best. So I will have that review in the financial review soon. And on another note, if you want to laugh about the type of people that you meet on cruise ships, I did a piece profiling 10 types of sailors for the Fin review as well. So, maybe you're the old salt who loves maps and dropping words like forecastle into everyday conversation, or you're a Cunarder obsessed with the British cruise liner, or maybe you are the pier runner who is the last person to get on board.
Would that be you, Belle?
I can't even tell. Yes, it was me. I did have a 2-year-old tucked under my arm while I was doing it because my taxi driver got lost. Oh my God, sharing and oversharing. I'm going to put a link to the show notes in that one if you'd like to take a read and find out what type of cruiser you were or are. And so, it's been a big week. What about you, Kirstie?
Yes, it has been a big week for you. My God. Well, I'm going on a Viking cruise soon. So when I am on board, I'll have a think about what type of what type I am. Because that was a really funny piece. But at the moment, I'm just coming down off my high of being in Tahiti. I haven't been back for very long, and I was so lucky to be the only Australian and New Zealand journalist. In fact, I was the only journalist at the event, and I was attending Tahiti's first yoga festival. They had some international coverage of the event, but I was the only one there. So it was amazing. Like sound bathing and yoga and lots of cultural experiences with locals. So things like I learned how to do the Vivo nose flute, and in French Polynesia, it's the only place in the world where they play the flute with your nose. I couldn't do it, but it was really good. And I also did a 4-wheel drive trek right down the middle of the island. But you go 40 k's from one side to the other, and it's literally like something out of Jurassic Park. So I will tell you more about that in an upcoming episode. And the other big high for me this week was that I had my first cover story in New Zealand's leading national Sunday paper, the Sunday Star Times. So that was exciting. And that was about Siem Reap, which is what we're going to talk about today. So it's also been published online. So we'll put a link to that, along with a hotel review I did for Carry On Luxury as well. We'll put both those links in the show notes.
So good. Congratulations on that cover story, Kirstie. Well, before we get to your incredible experience in Siem Reap, we are going to be discussing a little frequent flyer point action and some new research by Finder, which has found millions of Australians don't think frequent flyer points are worth collecting.
Yeah, so the survey found that only 1 in 3 people think Qantas points are worthwhile, compared to 1 in 4 saying Virgin points are worth the chase. And they're obviously the 2 most dominant frequent flyer programs.
Yeah, and Finder head of consumer research Graham Cook said there is an art to earning and burning points. He says, while it's easy to earn points, it can be tricky to get maximum value out of them when it comes to cashing them in. And I have to agree with him totally. He says, once you've earned them, don't waste them on shopping or paying fees. Instead, you get more value by using them for flights, specifically for flights and upgrades.
Yeah, and that's why obviously people don't think they're worthwhile, because a lot of it's about education, right, and not really knowing what to do with them and how to make the most out of them. So they say that, for instance, if you spend 100,000 points on a $2,000 flight, that's decent value. But if you're spending them on like a $500 appliance, then yeah, it's really not. And he says that there's some. So we've got a little tip here for you. He says that there's some credit cards that are the fastest way and the best ways to earn large volumes of the points, so that you can then obviously maximize them.
Yeah, so if you're shopping around on credit cards, the top cards to make sure you are getting the most points with are the Qantas American Express Ultimate Card, which offers 90,000 bonus Qantas points I mean, you've got to spend at least $3,000 on eligible purchases within the first 3 months from the card approval. And the ANZ Frequent Flyer Black. And this card, because they actually rate their cards, it has a Finder score of 9.8 out of 10 and offers up to 130,000 bonus Qantas points. And then, you've got some of those qualifications in there, 90,000 bonus points plus $200 back when you spend $5,000 on eligible purchases. So, you've got to play a bit of that game. And Qantas Money Platinum, which will give you up to 100,000 bonus Qantas points when you spend $5,000 in the first 90 days. And that card has a Finder score of 9.4.
Yeah. And with all of these, obviously, you've got to read the fine print because, I mean, there's, there can be stipulations around them all. But for Virgin, it's American Express Velocity Platinum card where you can earn 100,000 bonus points and you get 5,000 back on eligible purchases in the first 3 months. And Virgin Australia Velocity High Flyer card was the other one. And that gives you, sort of similar ratings, really. But again, I mean, a lot of it just comes down to making sure you do your research first and think about, because obviously you're stuck with them for a while because you can't just keep jumping onto new credit cards to get points and then jump off them again.
Well, some people can. I thought that was interesting with those Virgin cards that they do actually give you things like they'll have things like lounge passes, 2 lounge passes a year, and they'll also give you status credits as well. So not just the frequent flyer card points, but also those status credits to the ones that lift you up into the different, which take you from bronze to stratospheric, whatever the top one is, which I have never even got a whiff of.
Yes, which I do have actually, thanks to all my cold spending. And also just check though that how long you're tied in, because quite often you'll be tied in. You can't just get a card and then just get the points and leave. Like you will be tied into. So you've got to read the fine print and make sure that you understand what's going on.
And you've got to take your chances that you're not going to be in a data hack as well, because everybody has had that at the moment with Qantas and Virgin Airways as well. So, oh my goodness, it is it is a bit of a minefield, but yes, easy to earn, hard to burn. I think we just, they are a currency, right? And credit these points are actually currency. And we've covered this topic quite a bit on the pod. So if you want a really in-depth understanding of how frequent flyer points and status points work, head on back to 71 to learn how to fly up the pointy end of the plane with Air Mile loyalty specialist Adele Alicio of the Champagne Mile. Or you can jump onto episode 36, where we have points whisperer Chris Chamberlain of Points Hacks hacking the dark art of frequent flyer points. This week, my guest is, drumroll please, Kirstie. Yay! So our own Kirstie Bedford is taking us to one of the world's great archaeological sites, Angkor Wat in Siem Reap, and she's going to tell us why this Cambodian landmark is one of the best places to go with your teens. Right, so tell us a bit about Siem Reap, Kirstie. Where is it and why you chose to go there?
So, like most people, many people, I have long wanted to go to Angkor Wat, and we were also going to a private island retreat called Songsa, which is just off the mainland of Cambodia, a remarkable place. So it was the perfect opportunity to head up to Siem Reap first, which is in the northwest. So we wanted to go up there first, and then we flew from Melbourne up to Siem Reap, and then and then we went back down. And then flew out of Ho Chi Minh to get home. So for those who don't know, Angkor Wat is a UNESCO World Heritage listed, and it's a 12th century temple. But it's not just one temple. It's the world's largest religious structure, and it covers about 160 hectares. And according to Britannica, it has more than 1,000 buildings. It certainly feels that way when you're walking around it. And it's one of the great cultural wonders of the world. And it's just, it's just really remarkable. I had no idea how special it was going to be, and I'll tell you about that soon.
So, I mean, first things first, where did you stay when you were, how far away were you from Angkor Wat?
So we stayed at FCC Angkor Bhayavani, which was once the Foreign Correspondence Club. You've probably heard Belle and I possibly talking about this before because Belle stayed there too. And
Mm.
and it was home once also to the French colonial governor in the 1920s. So it's the actual building itself is really like just the epitome of its colonial history. So it's in such a good location. It's over the river and about, if anyone that knows Siem Reap, and about 6 kilometres from Angkor Wat. So, and it's just around the corner from the royal residence. So this is where the King of Cambodia and his family stay when they travel to Siem Reap. It's really funny because you walk past and there's just this really low fence, and you could probably just kind of duck in there, but I don't think you're supposed to. But yeah, it's not it doesn't have, it's not like any other sort of royal residence that you'd expect, but really lovely and right on the riverfront. So the property, FCC, looks like I said, like a colonial mansion, but inside it's just really luxe. So it's got these cute little touches too that hark back to its days as the Foreign Correspondence Club. So there's like vintage rotary phones and Remington typewriters in the rooms. I just love that. And our room, when we walked in, it's like all open planned with just this beautiful super king bed in the middle of the room and this huge bathroom and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a private balcony with this deep stone bath. It was more like a outdoor jacuzzi, really, which was out on the balcony, this private little balcony. So it was just gorgeous, perfect for the weather. And it's just also got these really great little places, kind of nooks around it to sort of eat and drink. So lots of little rooftop sort of places near the there's a beautiful bar, and then there's a beautiful restaurant, and so you can just go and find a little quiet nook and sit down and have a cocktail and listen to the world, the tuk-tuks and the motorbikes roaring by, and there's a gym and a pool, obviously, sort of things you'd expect. The pool's really cool because it's that from the ground floor rooms, they can actually they've got a little terrace and they can just dive straight in. And the boys, my boys who are 17 and 20, they shared a room next to ours. So there's an interconnecting door. So that's what makes it a family suite for people traveling with a family. And this trip was a little bit special for us because I knew it would possibly be our last family trip because Mr. 17 has a rather big social life, and it was sort of like leaving a limb behind for him to come with us. The 20-year-old will come any day of the week. He just loves travel. He's got the travel bug for sure. But yeah, Mr. 17, while he does like travel, he was pretty reluctant to come because, I mean, a few days away from the old social group, Bayside gang. So he, yeah, that was challenging, but it did all change when it absolutely pelted down with rain, just as we're about to go on the quad bikes.
Quad bikes and rain. I can imagine that'd be a 17-year-old boy's dream. And I think that's when it changes, doesn't it? I mean, when they're little kids, you just drag them along with you. But then they get to a point where they've actually got opinions. And I don't know, I mean, my kids always had opinions, but where, you have to build in things that they actually want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where I found Siem Reap such a great place because, with the quad bikes, we went out with a company called Active Green Quad Bikes, and you can organise that through the hotel. And I had sort of pictured, this sort of quiet ride through the Cambodian countryside, past rice fields, that beautiful sweet scent. Anyone that's been through the rice fields and watching the sunset and then sitting having a cool beverage while the sun was setting. And instead, our tuk-tuk picked us up and it was pelting down. And I mean, like, we got given a one of those disposable ponchos, and I was basically drenched before when I put it on before we even got in the tuk-tuk. And we're in the tuk-tuk and the rain progressively just got worse and worse and worse until I literally couldn't even see, like, through the sheer covers that were down around us. I couldn't even see the motorbikes behind us. It was that torrential, and we were like, you could hear it, like, splashing through puddles. And I was thinking, oh my God, like, are they even going to go through with this? Anyway, and we got there and I said to the guides, do you still go? Because then there was all these quad bikes lined up, and, Mr. 17's like shooting daggers at me. Like, if we don't go on this quad bike, I'm basically flying home. And he's like, yeah, people love it. They prefer to come when it's raining because it's more fun. And I just looked at my husband and we were just thinking, we are in a world of trouble here because yeah, we knew that the 17-year-old would be slightly out of control on one of those, and he was. So the tour through rural Siem Reap with mud flying everywhere, pouring with rain. My oldest son has glasses. He couldn't see a thing. He went into the river, quad bike and all. While, the 17-year-old was just tearing off down through, like, the one who should have come off was just tearing off down the laneways. And I was thinking, oh my God, I've seen their lives flash before my eyes. But, they really did have just the best time. So they had their own quad bikes and Dave and I shared. So I was happy just to go on one with him. So we went to a little village and we met. This is part of their tour. They take you to, you go through, that's basically all you're going is through villages, obviously, because it's really quiet and beautiful farmland, rice fields. And then but we stopped at the home of a farmer's home, and he was 71 years old, and his 66-year-old wife came out, and they've been farming there for half a century. I mean, they're obviously very young when they bought the property, and they took us into their house, and we got to see sort of how they live in this tiny little shack with this sort of indoor-outdoor makeshift kitchen and up into this wooden pergola. And then his wife, Shaylak, she brings us these beautiful platters of the fresh fruit and vegetables that they grow there. So they grow like bananas and winter melons and long beans. And then she gave us this alcoholic little beverage to taste that, offered Mr. 17 one. And then we, here we are sitting around having a chat, and she was asking about, our family configuration and then we got back on the quad bikes and we went and you go through and visit some temples and some monasteries, and there's just monks walking through calmly in the rain, just meandering through. It's just quite remarkable and such a sense of calm. And then we did also visit a crocodile farm, which is a bit of an acquired taste because there's, a whole lot of crocs in a concrete sort of pen. But yeah, just what an amazing experience. And by the time we got back to drop the quad bikes off, I mean, the teens were just so reluctant to get off them, and they just had the best time of their lives.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So can I just ask, did the 17-year-old drink the alcoholic beverage?
No, I think I said no to that. I think it was a bit too much going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you imagine that on the quad bikes in the rain and the mud and fueled by local liquors? But I'm guessing you also went to Angkor Wat. So what was that like with the teens? How did they go? And we're using teen advisedly here because Anya's actually 20 now. Yeah, Kirstie doesn't want to let go. But anyway, so how did they find? Why did they find Angkor Wat?
Yeah, so we our experience with Angkor Wat. So you can do it a few different ways. So we went on a sunrise tour, which was a little challenging getting 17-year-old up. But we went in open air jeeps, which was such a great way. And so it was just incredible because, we got up under the cover of darkness. We slip into these little open air jeeps. The only people on the road, there were a couple of cyclists, and the driver was saying to us, "Oh yeah, there's a few locals that just like to cycle up to Angkor Wat and cycle around in the mornings. They can obviously just get through their dates." And then there were just a couple of people on motorbikes, and that was it. It was just dead quiet, and it was just such a surreal feeling. And then we drove. Like I said, it's really close from the hotel, so it didn't take us very long to get there. And we went with Adventures Cambodia. They have these open-air jeeps, and they also have Vespas, so you can do it via Vespa too. And so we had this incredible guide, and quite often on a trip, I mean, the people always make it for me, make the place. That's the whole point of travel to me, right? Is like just to meet local people and hear their stories and talk to them. And we had this incredible guide called Suffolk, and he just made the trip so special because from the minute we got there, he was sort of explaining to us, and this is where it's so valued for young adults and older teens, because he was explaining a lot about the Khmer Rouge radical communist movement. So that ruled for people who don't know, in Cambodia from 1975 to 79. And it just made you realize it wasn't really all that long ago. And he grew up in a little village nearby. And so when he grew up, he used to play football on the grounds at Angkor Wat with his brother. And then years later, he worked there cleaning the temple as a monk. But during that Khmer Rouge rule, when he was a little boy, he lost 10 siblings during that time to starvation, and they were taken and working in farms, and they died from starvation, most of them. And it was just such an incredible experience to hear this dark history. And he really wanted us to know the history. They want their stories told. He wants the history told, and he wants it obviously so people, for other generations, can understand what they went through. And he was such a happy person, and really loved the fact that he could still work in this place where he had, played football with a homemade football made out of clothing wrapped in tape with his brother, in the grounds. And he was telling us about how, the trees were only up to his knees when he first started there, and there's these giant trees all through the landscape. And yeah, it was just a remarkable experience with him. And he showed us some of when we walked across the bridge. Because when we first got there, he actually took us, and this is a great thing about having a really good guide, is he actually took us to the moat, a little wall where outside of the moat, where we could watch as the sun rose, the 5 spears of Angkor Wat appear before us and reflect off the waters, and it was just remarkable. And while you watched, all the throngs of people heading over the bridge. So we didn't go over the bridge until later. And then when we walked over the bridge, he stopped and showed us some of the bomb craters from during that Khmer Rouge ruling. And so it really made it very real. And, he was telling us about how he used to climb all those ancient walls, parkour style, with his brothers, and play there. And so yeah, that really made the experience for me. I mean, Angkor Wat itself is just remarkable, but having someone like him talk us through his experiences made it so special. And then once we'd walked through, because there's a lot to see, you really do need sort of half a day or at least a few hours, to walk around these ancient temples and buildings. And you can walk right up to the top, which is just remarkable because you can look out through the little arched windows and see this stunning landscape with all these ruins. And then after you finish there, he took us for a monk blessing. And then we went to some other temples because there's hundreds and hundreds of temples in Siem Reap. And so we also went to another one, which was the film location of Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider, and a whole series of other temples. So it was going with someone like him, like I said, just really made it a special experience.
Oh my God, I can't believe 10 siblings that he lost. That's just, it's just astonishing. And as you say, the Khmer Rouge period was really not that long ago.
No.
It's those experiences with locals that make it so special. I mean, what a great experience for you and for the boys as well. So, I mean, apart from all of that, what surprised you about this trip?
Well, I think what surprised me was I knew the food was going to be good. I mean, hello, you're in Southeast Asia. I just love Southeast Asian sort of food, Vietnamese, Cambodian food's remarkable. The food is exceptional, but I didn't expect. We went to, so the woman who actually runs this company, Adventures Cambodia, she's got a remarkable story as well about her experience. And her partner was a consultant to Embassy by Chef Kim Sat. And so we went, so this restaurant, Embassy, is a 5-star restaurant, fine dining restaurant, and she hosted us for this most beautiful degustation dinner. We did leave the boys behind because I was thinking, fine dining, degustation, they can stay behind. So Dave and I went to this restaurant, which is literally just around the corner from the property, from SEC. We walked. Well, I think actually he picked us up. We drove one way and we walked back. And then, so it's actually in the world's 50 best restaurants. And the world's 50 best said about it, English-speaking staff are well-versed in all aspects of the cuisine, from the tangy red tree ant sauce to the Paris-worthy macaroons. But Look, the food was just the presentation alone. I mean, it was like art on a plate, and I know a lot of chefs do that these days, but it was just exceptional. And the ethos behind it is it's also the executive chef, Kim San Paul, she only hires women. And when I asked, so I went, we were so fortunate that I got to go into the kitchen and have a chat with her, and I said to her, asked her about this ethos and what, why she does hire only women. And she said, because women cook from the heart, and also because women can cook better because they're obviously always cooking for their families. And she wanted women to get them out of their own kitchens and to work to be able to cook, for a proper restaurant. And so she trains them all up. And this is literally fine dining, and it's by local female chefs. It's just amazing. And each dish, and they change the menu seasonally, and they give you this menu, and each dish is paired with champagne wine or organic herbal teas. So, for some reason, I chose the herbal teas. My husband had the wine. And like the teas were incredible. They tasted so good. And there were just like a whole series of different teas that we had by the end of it. I mean, I drank so much herbal tea. I think I slept like a baby. But yeah, the food was really good, and that did really surprise me, that experience. So if you do go to Siem Reap, you do have to go to Embassy.
So it's Embassy by Chef Kim San. That sounds absolutely divine. Yeah, and not always I mean, you can find a Thai restaurant on every corner, whereas Cambodian is not as ubiquitous, at least in Australia anyway. So aside from the food, what else is there for teens to do around this area?
So, I mean, you have to just go for a walk around, right? So we just went for a wander around the streets to soak up the atmosphere, and there's loads of street food, which is also very good. And just the tuk-tuks, it's so funny because the tuk-tuk drivers, they stop because it's so hot, and they're thinking, "What? Why are you walking around?" And they just offer to pick you up, and they'll take you around for about $2 US a day, like for a couple of hours, like for about $2 US. You can just jump in one and have the time of your life. And so we found that by just sort of rubbing our stomachs and saying, we needed to walk off the food, that that was enough for them to leave us behind.
So wrapping it all up, I mean, who do you think is this destination best suited for? Because I've traveled there, but I think I was alone at the time. Yeah, so yeah, who fits it best?
Well, I did write a cover story for the Sunday Star Times where I said, last hurrah, why the Siem Reap's the best place to go before your teens go solo. Teens loosely, as we said. And I really do believe it's such an important place because of the culture, and there's a really good dose of adventure. There are loads of other things that you can do. It's a great place I mean, travel connects family. Anyway, I always find travel such a great way to connect as a family. But I think, and it's so transformational when you're just learning and you're immersing in a new culture, though, and to see the history firsthand. I'm so grateful for the guide that we had and for what he was able to expose to my boys. And so yeah, I think it's the perfect place to take your teens before they go solo.
Oh, so good. And if you'd like to read more about Kirstie's experience, we'll put a link to those stories in the show notes, those stories which have appeared on Carry On Luxury and in the Sunday Star Times. Take a look in the show notes on the website, theworldawaits.au. Our tip this week is to help you understand the new Kyoto accommodation tax. So, from March next year, everybody staying in the Japanese second city of Kyoto will need to pay the tax. This came about as Japan tries to control over tourism in this iconic city, and the tax will be the highest in the country.
Yeah, so basically what that means is Currently, visitors pay a hotel tax of about $10 a night, but the new tax is tied to the cost of your hotel. So if your hotel is less than, say, $500 a night, you'll pay that $10. But if your room's between 500 and 1,000, it rises to about $40 a night. And if you're staying in a hotel above 1,000, then you could be paying up to 10,000 yen or $100 extra in tax per night.
So the Japanese government says the tax will be used to increase the city's appeal as an international tourism destination and to promote tourism, which is a very interesting turn of phrase, given the whole point is to curb tourism. But it will be used for improving safety and convenience, like adding gates to metro station platforms and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and also used for improving tourist satisfaction, revitalising local areas, and they say preserving cultural heritage and scenery, and developing traditional culture too. What are your thoughts on taxes to reduce over-tourism, Belle?
Well, I think Japan is an exceptional case of over-tourism. As we've said here before, the number of Australians visiting has doubled in the past year, and the figures are just crazy, like, 1 million Australians. And of course, we're not the only ones fascinated with the country. So something, I think, has got to be done to ensure that residents aren't negatively impacted upon by tourism. And that is what Kyoto's people are saying, that it is so crowded that, it's impinging upon their way of life. So, look, Kyoto's not the only one. Remember, Bali has a new tourism tax, and it's the same situation. We all pile in there. We place an enormous amount of pressure on its infrastructure, including hospitals and roads. And, the vast amount of foreign immigrants living in places like Bali also puts huge pressure upon its culture. So I think, like most things, if you want the experience, you've got to pay the money. It's not a huge tax. We don't quibble to pay to visit national parks. And if Kyoto's public transport is crowded and streets need more cleaning because of tourism, then, we're responsible. Shouldn't we pay? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I was reading up, there's a website called responsibletravel.com, and I was reading about this because they've done an extensive piece on this. And they had a really good take on it. And basically, they say that the short answer is no, taxes won't work without addressing the core problem, which is one of sustainability, which I completely agree with. And they say that tourism planning has to take into account the negatives of higher visitor numbers as well as the positives, and accept that more doesn't always mean better. So raising taxes is a national consequence when industry doesn't pay its way, and while it's legitimate, it's not going to fix over tourism on its own. So I think that they had some really, really interesting points on it, and the whole article is really fascinating. So if you want to have a read of that, we'll put a link in the show notes as well, so that, or you can just Google responsibletravel.com and tourism tax, and that one will pop up.
You're listening to The World Awaits. Subscribe through our website at theworldawaits.au.
Next week, it's Belle's turn in the interviewee chair, and she's taking us to the Northern Territory. So we're talking about the West MacDonald Ranges, Kings Canyon and Uluru Katajuta on a driving holiday with teens. So tune in for that one.
I cannot wait to share all of the red dust goodness. And we'd love it if you followed us on socials. You'll find us at The World Awaits Podcast on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And feel free to drop us a line at hello@theworldawaits.au. Or if you're enjoying the episode, give us a rating or a review. That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.